Who do you think is the most dangerous person in any room? The loud one demanding attention, the aggressive one asserting dominance, the charismatic one commanding admiration, or the silent one watching without revealing a single intention? Most people answer incorrectly because they confuse visibility with threat. They believe danger announces itself. They believe power seeks the spotlight. They believe dominance must be displayed to be real. Machiavelli knew better. He understood something deeply unsettling about human nature. The most dangerous person is rarely the one you notice first. It is the one you forget to watch. The truly dangerous individual does not compete for attention. They do not rush to speak. They do not volunteer opinions to prove intelligence or morality. They sit within the room like a still surface, hiding depth beneath it. They observe patterns, absorb dynamics, and allow others to reveal themselves fully. While the rest of the room performs, they study. While others expose strengths and weaknesses, they remain unreadable. This unreadability is not accidental. It is cultivated, and that is why it terrifies those who understand power. Machiavelli believed that danger lies not in aggression, but in asymmetry. The most dangerous person knows more than they reveal, feels less than they show, and commits later than expected. They allow others to misjudge them, underestimate them, or project onto them whatever makes them comfortable. Comfort is the enemy of vigilance. In every room, a hierarchy forms unconsciously. People test one another with language, posture, humor, confidence, morality. They look for reactions, they look for cracks, they look for predictability. Most fail these tests immediately by responding too quickly. They defend themselves, they explain, they react. In doing so, they give the room a map. The dangerous person does not hand over a map. Machiavelli understood that power begins the moment others cannot predict your next move. Predictability creates management. Unpredictability creates caution. Caution slows people down, and whoever controls the tempo controls the room. The dangerous person rarely interrupts. They let others speak themselves into corners. They let egos expand. They let alliances reveal themselves through tone and body language. They let people show what they care about most, what they fear losing, and what they secretly want. All of this information flows freely because no one feels threatened. Threat changes behavior. Comfort reveals truth. This is why the most dangerous person often appears harmless. They are not emotionally reactive. They are not ideologically rigid. They do not argue passionately. They do not moralize loudly. They do not try to win debates. They do not need to. Machiavelli would say that those who need to prove power do not possess it. Power that must announce itself is already insecure. True power allows others to speak foolishly without correction. It waits, it accumulates. Waiting is misunderstood as weakness by those who do not understand timing. But timing is everything. Acting too early exposes intention. Acting too late loses opportunity. The dangerous person waits precisely until action cannot be ignored and cannot be resisted. They also understand something else most people do not. Dominance does not come from force, but from position. Position is established long before confrontation ever occurs. By the time conflict becomes visible, the outcome has already been decided. This is why Machiavelli warned rulers about underestimating quiet figures. The loud enemy can be anticipated, the open rival can be countered, the visible threat can be prepared for. But the silent one changes the terrain without being noticed. In social environments, the dangerous person rarely leads openly at first. They influence indirectly. They ask questions that seem neutral but redirect thought. They validate selectively. They withdraw attention strategically. Attention is currency. Withdrawing it destabilizes egos far more effectively than confrontation. People reveal their weakness when deprived of validation. They become louder, sharper, more desperate. In doing so, they expose themselves further. The dangerous person does not cause this, they simply allow it. Machiavelli believed that humans are driven more by fear of loss than desire for gain. The dangerous person exploits this, not through threats, but through absence. When they disengage, people feel uncertainty. Uncertainty breeds anxiety. Anxiety breeds mistakes. Mistakes create leverage. The most dangerous person also understands that morality is often used as camouflage. Those who loudly declare virtue are often masking ambition or insecurity. The dangerous person does not attack morality directly. They let moralists overextend themselves. They let them commit publicly to positions they cannot sustain. Later, when reality intrudes, credibility collapses on its own. This collapse is not engineered loudly. It happens quietly, through contradiction and exposure over time. The dangerous person remains clean because they did not force it. They simply allowed truth to surface naturally. You begin to see now why Machiavelli valued restraint over brilliance. Intelligence displayed too openly invites competition. Emotion displayed too freely invites control. Principles displayed too rigidly invite exploitation. The dangerous person holds all of these internally and reveals only what serves position. They also understand the final psychological advantage. They do not need to win every interaction. They are willing to lose small battles to win structural ones. They let others feel superior temporarily. Superiority breeds carelessness. Carelessness creates openings. This patience feels unnatural to those addicted to immediate validation. But Machiavelli knew that those who chase small victories often sacrifice long-term dominance. The dangerous person invests in outcomes that unfold slowly and decisively. You might feel discomfort now because you recognize how often you have equated goodness with visibility, honesty with safety, and silence with weakness. Machiavelli would dismantle these assumptions mercilessly. He would tell you that silence is not emptiness, it is containment. And containment is power. The most dangerous person is not cruel. They are not chaotic. They are not emotionally detached in the way people imagine. They simply refuse to be readable. They refuse to be rushed. They refuse to give the room more than it deserves. They are present without being exposed, engaged without being invested, calm without being passive. And because of this, they shape the room without ever appearing to control it. This is the beginning of understanding Machiavelli's most unsettling insight. Danger is not what threatens you directly. It is what understands you while remaining hidden. And if you look carefully, you will realize that every room you have ever been in had one person like this. The only question is whether, next time, it will be you. Once you begin to sense who the dangerous person truly is, the room itself starts to feel different. Conversations lose their innocence. Laughter sounds strategic. Compliments feel conditional. You realize that most people are not interacting, they are positioning. They are testing gravity, probing for weakness, seeking signals that tell them where they stand and how far they can go. And in the middle of this constant, mostly unconscious struggle, the dangerous person does nothing spectacular at all. They simply do not rush. Machiavelli understood that speed is often mistaken for strength. People speak quickly to avoid silence. They react quickly to avoid appearing weak. They commit quickly to avoid uncertainty. But speed is exposure. Speed reveals fear of being outpaced. The dangerous person lets time stretch. They allow silence to linger just long enough to make others uncomfortable, but not long enough to draw suspicion. That discomfort does the work for them. Silence is a mirror. People project into it whatever they fear most. Their insecurity, their ambition, their resentment all surface when there is no noise to hide behind. The dangerous person watches this projection carefully, not with judgment, but with interest. Every word spoken in that discomfort is a gift of information.
Machiavelli believed that information asymmetry is the foundation of all power. Whoever knows more than they reveal controls the direction of events without needing to announce control.
This is why the dangerous person rarely interrupts. Interruption asserts dominance overtly, but it also reveals priority. It tells the room what matters to you. The dangerous person keeps their priorities invisible until acting on them becomes unavoidable. As others speak, the dangerous person tracks patterns. Who seeks approval and from whom? Who aligns with power instinctively? Who challenges authority only when safe? Who jokes to deflect? Who moralizes to dominate without appearing aggressive? These patterns repeat across rooms, across cultures, across centuries. Machiavelli saw them in courts and councils. You see them in boardrooms, classrooms, and social circles. The dangerous person is dangerous because they see these patterns without being consumed by them. They do not resent the loudest. They do not envy the charismatic. They do not fear the aggressive. Emotional reactions blur perception. The dangerous person remains emotionally neutral, which allows perception to sharpen. Neutrality, however, is not passivity. This is where most misunderstand Machiavelli. The dangerous person is not waiting forever. They are waiting for inevitability. They wait until dynamics harden, until alliances are visible, until incentives are clear. Acting before this moment would be premature. Acting after it would be irrelevant. You start to notice how often people sabotage themselves by acting too early. They challenge before they have support. They reveal intentions before they have leverage. They confront before the environment is ready. Machiavelli would call this impatience disguised as courage. The dangerous person understands that courage without positioning is just exposure. True courage is restraint under provocation. It is the ability to absorb pressure without leaking intention. Pressure reveals most people. It sharpens the dangerous one. Another unsettling realization follows. The dangerous person rarely seeks consensus. Consensus is slow and dilutes responsibility. Machiavelli observed that consensus is often a refuge for the weak, a way to hide indecision inside collective approval. The dangerous person listens to consensus but does not depend on it. They understand that most groups follow whoever appears most certain at the moment of decision. Certainty does not come from loudness, it comes from timing. When the dangerous person finally speaks, the room feels it, not because the words are dramatic, but because they land where uncertainty already exists. They articulate what others sensed but could not frame. This framing shifts reality. Once reality is framed, opposition becomes fragmented. Machiavelli knew that framing precedes force. Whoever defines the meaning of events controls the response to them. The dangerous person waits until the frame will be accepted almost automatically. By then, resistance feels unreasonable, even to those who privately disagree. This is why the dangerous person often appears reasonable rather than dominant. Reasonableness is a powerful disguise. It disarms emotional resistance. People lower their guard around those who seem balanced. Balanced people are trusted. Trusted people are followed. Followed people shape outcomes. The dangerous person also understands the value of selective vulnerability. This is subtle and easily misunderstood. They may reveal small weaknesses intentionally, harmless uncertainties, controlled admissions. These create relatability without surrendering leverage. Machiavelli understood that appearing invulnerable invites coalition against you. Appearing human while remaining unreadable keeps others comfortable and uncertain at the same time. Comfort mixed with uncertainty is a powerful combination. People relax, but not completely. They feel safe, but not superior. This emotional state makes them compliant without realizing it. You begin to see now why Machiavelli warned against being either too feared or too loved. The dangerous person is neither. They are respected. Respect is colder than love and quieter than fear, but far more stable than both. Respect does not require constant reinforcement. It sustains itself through consistency. Consistency is another hallmark. The dangerous person does not shift personalities across rooms. They do not perform differently for different audiences. This is not authenticity in the emotional sense, but coherence in the strategic sense. Their behavior is predictable even if their thoughts are not. This predictability makes others feel oriented. Orientation creates trust. Trust allows influence. Those who perform too much exhaust themselves. They are always adjusting, always reacting, always recalibrating to stay liked or admired. The dangerous person lets others do this work. They remain steady. Steadiness under chaos is interpreted as strength. Machiavelli observed that during instability, people instinctively gravitate toward whoever appears most composed. Composition suggests control. Control suggests safety. Safety attracts loyalty. Loyalty consolidates power. This is why the dangerous person does not panic publicly. Even when surprised internally, they slow their external response. Panic is contagious, so is calm. The dangerous person understands emotional contagion and uses it indirectly. They regulate themselves and let others regulate around them. Another crucial insight emerges here. The dangerous person rarely corrects others publicly. Public correction creates enemies. It humiliates. Humiliation breeds long memory. Machiavelli was acutely aware of this. He advised rulers to avoid unnecessary humiliation, not out of kindness, but out of strategy. Humiliated people wait. Instead, the dangerous person allows errors to stand until correction serves a larger purpose. Sometimes errors discredit their source naturally. Sometimes they reveal incompetence. Sometimes they create dependency. Immediate correction robs you of these advantages. This does not mean tolerating chaos indefinitely. It means understanding when correction strengthens position and when it weakens it. Timing again becomes everything. You begin to notice how often people mistake reaction for leadership. They respond to everything. They comment on everything. They feel obligated to have an opinion on everything. This creates noise. Noise obscures signal. The dangerous person values signal. They intervene rarely but decisively. When they do, it feels final. Not because it is aggressive, but because it solves uncertainty. People crave resolution more than freedom. Machiavelli understood this deeply. Unresolved tension exhausts groups. Whoever resolves it becomes central. This centrality is the real danger. The dangerous person becomes the axis around which the room unconsciously turns. Decisions orient toward them. Reactions reference them. Silence from them feels significant. Presence from them feels stabilizing. And yet, they never demand this role. Demanding reveals need. They accept it quietly, as a byproduct of behavior, not as a goal. As you absorb this, a question forms uncomfortably in your mind. If this is true, then how many times have you mistaken danger for noise and safety for silence? How many times have you competed with the wrong people while ignoring the ones who mattered? How often have you revealed yourself to those who were studying you quietly? Machiavelli would not offer comfort here. He would offer clarity. He would tell you that danger is not moral or immoral. It is positional. The most dangerous person is not the one with bad intentions, but the one with the greatest capacity to shape outcomes without resistance. This capacity does not come from charisma alone. Charisma attracts attention, but attention is volatile. It comes from restraint, patience, perception, and timing. These qualities do not sparkle. They accumulate. Accumulation is slow. That is why most people ignore it. They prefer immediate impact. They want to feel powerful now. The dangerous person is willing to feel invisible temporarily to become unavoidable later. There is a final layer to this danger that Machiavelli understood better than most. The dangerous person is not emotionally invested in being right. They are invested in being effective. Being right publicly can cost leverage. Being effective quietly preserves it. Those who argue to be right reveal ego. Ego-I. Predictable. Predictability is exploitable. The dangerous person lets others win arguments they do not matter. Victory intoxicates. Intoxicated people misstep. This is not cruelty. It is patience. As this understanding deepens, you feel your own behavior shifting. You speak less. You watch more. You stop filling silence. You stop clarifying unless necessary. You stop competing for dominance and start noticing who already has it. You begin to realize that the most dangerous person in any room is not someone you should fear, but someone you should learn from. Their danger is not violence, it is inevitability. And inevitability is built quietly, while everyone else is distracted by noise. By now, the room no longer feels random to you. It feels structured. You see currents beneath conversation. You sense momentum forming long before action. You recognize that power is rarely seized, it is allowed. And in the next moment, whether you realize it or not, someone else in the room will start to sense the same thing about you. At this stage, the understanding turns inward and becomes uncomfortable. You stop merely identifying the dangerous person and begin recognizing the conditions that create them. You realize that danger is not a personality trait but a posture. It is not something someone is born with, it is something someone learns to inhabit. And once learned, it is difficult to unlearn because it is built on seeing too much and revealing too little. You begin to notice how most people are constantly trying to anchor themselves emotionally in the room. They look for reassurance through agreement, laughter, attention, or validation. Every reaction they receive becomes feedback about their status. This dependence makes them readable. Readability makes them manageable. The dangerous person breaks this loop. They do not anchor themselves to the room. They let the unconsciously orient around them. Machiavelli understood that independence is the precursor to authority, not isolation but inner independence. The dangerous person does not need the room to confirm their worth, so they are not shaped by its moods. Praise does not inflate them. Criticism does not destabilize them. This emotional insulation is often mistaken for coldness, but it is actually discipline. Discipline is what allows observation without interference. When you are emotionally invested in being liked, you stop seeing clearly. When you are invested in being admired, you start performing. Performance creates blind spots. The dangerous person has fewer blind spots because they are not performing. This is where their perception sharpens to an almost unsettling degree. They notice micro shifts in energy. Who leans forward when someone speaks? Who withdraws? Who laughs too loudly? Who stays quiet when a certain name is mentioned? These details feel insignificant to most, but they form a map of influence. Machiavelli believed that power reveals itself through reaction, not declaration. Reaction is truth. Words are costume. The dangerous person watches reactions. They see who defers instinctively, who challenges selectively, who aligns opportunistically. Over time, these patterns become predictable. Predictability allows anticipation. Anticipation allows preemption. By the time others realize what is happening, the terrain has already changed. This is the quiet horror of Machiavelli's insight. Power does not usually announce itself with conflict. It announces itself with inevitability. Decisions start flowing in one direction. Resistance fades without confrontation. Outcomes feel natural even when they were engineered. The dangerous person does not need to dominate visibly because dominance is already assumed. Others begin to check themselves automatically. They phrase things more carefully. They seek approval subtly. They wait to see how the dangerous person reacts before committing fully. This is not commanded. It emerges. Emergence is key. Anything that must be enforced openly is already unstable. Machiavelli warned that forced authority breeds resentment. Emergent authority breeds compliance without friction. The dangerous person cultivates emergence through consistency and restraint. Another unsettling realization arrives here. The dangerous person often appears morally moderate. They avoid extreme positions publicly. Extremes polarize. Polarization forces clarity. Clarity invites opposition. The dangerous person prefers ambiguity because ambiguity delays resistance. This does not mean they lack strong convictions. It means they do not weaponize those convictions publicly until the cost-benefit is undeniable. They understand that moral certainty is a double-edged blade. It rallies allies but also unifies enemies. Machiavelli watched idealists fall not because they were wrong, but because they were premature. They demanded alignment before securing position. The dangerous person secures position first, then allows alignment to follow organically. You begin to understand why they often seem reasonable, balanced, even boring. Boredom is camouflage. Excitement draws attention. Attention draws scrutiny. Scrutiny accelerates opposition. The dangerous person moves beneath the threshold of excitement. This also explains why they are rarely the first to speak in meetings, debates, or crises. First speech sets direction, but it also fixes responsibility. If the direction fails, the first speaker carries blame. The dangerous person prefers to let others declare, then adjust the frame later with minimal exposure. Framing is more powerful than declaration. To declare is to assert. To frame is to define the meaning of way. At has already happened. Whoever controls meaning controls memory. Memory shapes narrative. Narrative shapes legitimacy. Machiavelli knew that legitimacy is more important than legality. Legality can be challenged. Legitimacy feels natural. The dangerous person invests in legitimacy quietly by aligning with outcomes that appear inevitable or widely accepted. You also begin to see how the dangerous person handles conflict. They rarely confront directly unless victory is certain or symbolic. Instead, they redirect, they delay, they allow conflicts to burn themselves out. Time weakens most opposition more effectively than force. Time is their ally because they are patient. Patience is rare in environments driven by ego and urgency. Most people want resolution now. The dangerous person understands that unresolved tension often resolves itself in their favor if they simply do not interfere. This patience frustrates aggressive personalities. Aggression relies on reaction. Without reaction, aggression loses momentum. The aggressive become erratic. Erratic behavior discredits them. Discredited people lose allies. Allies drift towards stability. Stability is what the dangerous person embodies. Not excitement, not brilliance. Stability. In uncertain environments, stability becomes magnetic. People gravitate toward what feels solid when everything else feels fluid. Machiavelli observed that during chaos, those who remain calm are mistaken for those in control. Often, that mistake becomes reality. Perception precedes power. If enough people treat you as central, you become central. This is not manipulation in the theatrical sense. It is alignment with human psychology. Humans seek anchors. The dangerous person becomes one by refusing to be moved easily. You might notice now how often people undermine themselves by overreacting. A single comment ruins their composure. A sigh, challenge pulls them into defensive explanation. A single insult hijacks their focus. The dangerous person does not grant this access. Access is another quiet theme. Who has access to your emotions, your attention, your time, your explanations? The dangerous person guards access ruthlessly, not aggressively but structurally. They are simply unavailable for manipulation. Unavailable people are difficult to control. Difficulty breeds caution. Caution preserves position. As this awareness deepens, you start feeling a subtle shift in your own presence. You are less reactive, less eager, less expressive. This can feel like losing something, but what you are losing is impulsive exposure. What you are gaining is density. Density is what makes presence felt without noise. A dense object bends space around it. A dense presence bends social dynamics. People slow down. They choose words more carefully. They wait. Waiting is power. Machiavelli's most unsettling lesson was never about cruelty. It was about inevitability. The dangerous person is dangerous because when they finally act, it feels obvious, justified, and overdue. Resistance feels irrational because the environment has already adjusted. This is why the most dangerous moves rarely feel dramatic. They feel administrative, logical, necessary. By the time they happen, debate feels pointless. And perhaps the most uncomfortable realization of all emerges here. The dangerous person is not necessarily the smartest, strongest, or most charismatic in the room. They are the most disciplined. They sacrifice expression for position. They sacrifice speed for accuracy. They sacrifice being seen for being effective. Most people cannot tolerate this sacrifice. They want recognition now. They want affirmation now. They want certainty now. The dangerous person delays gratification indefinitely. That delay is not empty. It compounds. As you sit with this, you begin to understand that danger in Machiavelli's sense is not something to fear, but something to respect. It is the product of mastery over self, perception, and timing. It is what remains when ego is stripped away and replaced with calculation. And in this moment, whether you like it or not, you are standing closer to that edge than before. There is a final threshold, and crossing it changes how you move through the world forever. Up to this point, understanding has been observational. You have watched the dangerous person. You have studied their restraint, their patience, their silence. Now the perspective turns fully inward, because Machiavelli's most uncomfortable truth was never about identifying power in others. It was about accepting what power demands of you. The cold mind advantage is not intelligence. It is not cruelty. It is not even ambition in its raw form. It is the willingness to endure discomfort that others cannot tolerate. Emotional discomfort, social discomfort, the discomfort of not being praised, not being understood, not being immediately rewarded. Most people collapse under this weight. They rush to explain themselves. They rush to prove their value. They rush to resolve tension, and in doing so, they surrender leverage. The cold mind does not rush. Once you internalize this, you begin to feel a subtle but irreversible separation from the crowd. You still participate, still speak, still engage, but you are no longer entangled. You are present without being absorbed. This is what Machiavelli meant when he implied that the greatest power is self-mastery. Not moral superiority, not dominance over others, but sovereignty over your reactions. Reactions are where most people lose themselves. A raised eyebrow derails them, a challenge provokes them, a slight consumes them. They mistake emotional discharge for authenticity, not realizing that every uncontrolled reaction is a negotiation they lost without knowing they were negotiating. The cold mind sees reaction as a resource to be conserved. You begin to notice how often people expose themselves emotionally under the banner of honesty. They confess too much, they reveal too early, they mistake transparency for virtue. Machiavelli would see this as strategic illiteracy. Honesty is not weakness, but unmanaged honesty is. Truth, when revealed without timing, becomes a weapon for others. The cold mind understands that concealment is not deception, it is protection. You do not owe the world access to your inner state. You do not owe anyone clarity before clarity serves you. Privacy is not guilt. Silence is not fear. Restraint is not emptiness. These are positions. As this settles in, your sense of identity shifts. You stop defining yourself by how you are perceived in the moment. You stop outsourcing your worth to reactions, likes, approval, or agreement. You realize that the need to be seen is the need to be controlled. Whoever needs validation is always one move away from manipulation. The cold mind needs nothing from the room except information. Information becomes nourishment. Every interaction feeds your understanding of human behavior. You see that people rarely lie with words, they lie with emphasis. They exaggerate what they want you to focus on and minimize what they fear you will notice. The cold mind notices what is minimized. It listens for what is rushed. It pays attention to what is joked away. This level of perception is isolating. That is the price. You cannot unsee patterns once you see them. You cannot fully rejoin emotional chaos once you understand its mechanics. Machiavelli knew this isolation well. To see clearly is to stand apart. But this distance is also freedom. Freedom from emotional blackout, freedom from impulsive decisions, freedom from needing to win every argument or correct every falsehood. The cold mind understands that not every battle deserves engagement. Some battles are distractions designed to pull you into exposure. Exposure is the enemy. The more predictable you become emotionally, the easier you are to manage. Predictability is comfort for others, but vulnerability for you. The cold mind cultivates behavioral consistency without emotional transparency. Others know what you will do, but not why you will do it. This creates trust without surrender. Trust without surrender is power. Machiavelli's world was brutal, but human psychology has not changed. Only the costumes have. Courts have become corporations. Princes have become executives, influencers, politicians, and social leaders. The games are the same: status, alignment, perception, timing. Those who master these quietly rise. Those who ignore them remain reactive forever. Now comes the final and most difficult truth. The cold mind advantage is not about domination. It is about inevitability. When you move with restraint, patience, and clarity, outcomes begin to align with you naturally. People defer without knowing why. Opportunities surface without being chased. Opposition dissolves before forming fully. This feels unsettling at first because it removes the drama from power. There is no constant adrenaline, no theatrical conflict, just movement, alignment, and resolution. Power becomes boring. That is how you know it is real. Most people will never choose this path. They will call it manipulative, cold, or inhuman because it threatens the emotional economy they depend on. They need noise. They need reassurance. They need visible struggle to feel alive. Let them have it. The cold mind does not need to convince. It waits. And now, the final turn is unavoidable. You can no longer pretend you do not know this. You can no longer unlearn what you have seen. From this moment forward, every time you react impulsively, you will feel the cost. Every time you reveal too much, you will sense the loss of leverage. Every time you speak when silence would have been stronger, you will feel the imbalance. This awareness is your threshold. You can retreat back into comfort, into emotional immediacy, into the illusion that power belongs only to the loud and the visible. Or you can step forward into discipline, restraint, and strategic self-mastery. Machiavelli never asked you to be cruel. He asked you to be awake. So now the question is no longer who is the most dangerous person in the room. The question is whether you are willing to become disciplined enough, restrained enough, patient enough to be the one whose presence changes the room without a word. If you are, then stop performing, stop over-explaining, stop reacting, start watching, start timing, start choosing silence where others choose noise. Adopt a cold mind not to dominate others, but to free yourself from manipulation, from impulsive weakness, from being predictable in a world that feeds on predictability. Because once you truly think like Machiavelli, you will never be powerless again, and the world will feel it long before it understands why.